Fresh air, longer days, a chance to reset. This season, let therapy be part of your spring cleaning. Clearing mental clutter, shaking off stuckness, and building something better. Grow Therapy helps you get there. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 15th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
When Mother's Day means celebrating your mom, your wife, maybe even your daughter as a new mom, trust 1-800-Flowers to help you celebrate every important woman in your life. With double blooms from 1-800-Flowers, order 1 dozen roses and get another dozen for free. It's a simple way to give beautifully, with colorful blooms that make Mother's Day feel meaningful. For every mom you're celebrating, order with confidence and get double blooms at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast.
Kevin Bradbury, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great to have you on the show. You are a veteran NBA agent and current head of basketball at Lyft Sports Management. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Thank you again for having me on the show. I think the greatest part about my job is that I wake up every morning not really sure what I'm going to do today. I had one meeting scheduled, and that was with you, right? And then the rest of them I've probably had 15 calls already this morning that I've handled, some international stuff as well for our guys, and we're right in the throes of recruiting and everything else that we're doing. So you don't really know on a given day what you're going to do or what fire you're going to have to put out. And that kind of keeps it fresh and keeps it exciting. At the same time, you get to see a lot of different scenarios all the time. So you kind of draw on those as you get further along in the business. Like you said, being a veteran agent for a long time, I started in this business and thought I was the young guy. Then all of a sudden I wake up one day and I've done $1 billion in contracts, and you start to go, oh, okay, I've been doing this for a little bit. So I think I'm going to make it. Right. But I think the most important thing is I try to stay humble, and I know I'm only as good as my players are.
I like that mindset. So athlete representation is a really interesting, call it field. And you said you've done this for 2 decades now. And I mean, NIL and everything that's happening lately, and it has evolved quite a bit over the last 2 decades. So how has that change been like for you?
I think the change is for the better. The good part about, 2 decades of experience here is that I saw the kids that were playing for a team where coaches were being paid millions of dollars and the universities were making millions of dollars, and parents couldn't even afford a plane ticket to come see him play, or the kid couldn't go home for Christmas, you know what I mean? Or go home for spring break after the season ended. So I think there had to be some type of correction of the market, if you will. Everybody's continuing to work to find that medium ground. I think it was all the way to one side for a little bit, which was great for players, for agents, for schools, you know what I mean? That had the resources, but I think that they're working to find more of a common ground that'll work for everybody. But I think it's wonderful for kids to be able to do this.
Yeah, definitely. So being athlete representation, agent, you can call it different things. What I've understood by talking to agents in different sports is that you do more or less everything surrounding the athlete. It's not helping writing the contract and then that's it. It can be high and low, whatever. So can you talk a little bit about what type of help are you giving the athletes? What are you working with them with? We said before we hit record here that it's during the career, but also post-career. So it's very wide.
Yeah. Experiences for me in the business of what you do on a day-to-day basis is just think of anything that you do on a day-to-day basis, right? So we try to keep the sport that the guys are playing in, basketball, the main thing so that they can stay focused on that, so that their spouse or girlfriend or family member can stay focused on helping them prepare each day, right? You've got 82 games post preseason, right? All of that type of stuff. So there's a lot of things that go on around it that obviously have to happen for guys. Moving, travel, chefs, whatever it is that they need. We have staff that can help them prepare for all of those types of things. And then it's just the day to day, right? It's like any job. You've got a coach that you got to get along with. You got an organization that you have to thrive in. And so we have to help with those types of things too. And so as you get further in the business, I can start to see trends, or I can see when a guy is struggling a little bit, or I'll know it's time to get on a plane. and go spend some time with them. And I spend a lot of time in the air. I spend a lot of time in market with guys because I feel like you can't be a part of their life unless you're in it, right? So you have to make that effort to be able to be there for them and to build the relationship where they can trust you enough to know that you've got their back whenever things aren't going the way they need it. So one day I could be, helping our staff and all of us could be helping work to help a guy move because he got traded. The next day I can be doing his $100 million contract. It's just, you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, definitely. So it's the trust piece that you mentioned there. It's that one of the most important one, you would say, for a successful partnership?
The trust is probably the basis of the entire relationship. Your players have to know that you have their back in any circumstance. And it doesn't matter, listen, a lot of times, right? It's like whether they're right or they're wrong, you've still got their back. And you also, I think, have to have enough of a backbone to be able to tell them when they're not right, but you do that in a conversation with them to help them be better. It's just, these are young men, young women, right? You have to be able to help them understand as they move along in life and make mistakes. It's ironic because when I started in the business as a young man, I was helping these guys and then thinking about my life and how I could apply that to my own life, right? And now I've got kids and I'm helping them. And I think of the things that I've done for my players and folks, and it's made me like apply that even into my own life with my kids. Like, no, here's how we do this, and here's where you're going to bump your head, and here's what, you know what I mean? So it's great experience, but it's also the most rewarding part about it. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited and energized every day to still be a part of it is because I know that I'm helping people achieve their goals, right? It's not about the money, right? It's not about a lot of those things when you're in the day to day, right? When you look back on a guy's career and he made this and he made that and he achieved these accomplishments, you feel good that you helped him do that. But on the day to day, man, we're trying to survive 82. We're trying to win and we're trying to get our numbers and still be a team guy and all of those types of things. So there's a lot of work that goes into it. So you just kind of put your head down and grind.
For sure. So obviously one part of your job is the contract negotiations. And you mentioned before that you have negotiated, billions of dollars. What are some key elements you would say in order to make a successful contract negotiation?
I think the most important thing is experience. And I hate to say that to all the young folks out there that you've got to get some experience, but even working with somebody that has some experience, right? I remember early in my career, it's super early, like a couple weeks in, great story. We were doing a max contract for a max player, right? And obviously the head of our agency was the lead on the negotiation. And he said, come with me, we're going to negotiate this max deal. So we flew in the market and we sat down and talking at the table and the player was there and everybody. And I was like, cool, here comes the negotiation I'm going to learn. And the general manager slid the contract across and said, here's the max with everything in it. What do you guys think? And the player looked at it and says, yeah, I'll do it, sign it. And then we went to lunch. And I was like, oh, this is super easy. I could do this. Right. And I wish they were all like that. Right. But they're not. So I think there's a big component to knowing the marketplace, first of all, and not just the comps for a player where you can look at guys who averaged this number and did this, this, and this. You also have to be very smart in what teams have money, right, in the marketplace that year. You also have to look at what the teams are willing to pay and what their needs are. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. And then I think the strong part after you have all of those numbers and you can enter into it is being able to have relationships with the teams and the general managers, the owners, the presidents, all of those folks, because everybody's in the mix when you're doing a deal like that nowadays. And so you have to be able to have them trust you and know that what you're bringing to the table is real. And the consequences of us not reaching a deal on everybody is also on the table as well. So I try to look at it from all sides in myself and then do what's best for my client.
That's interesting because the trust piece is not only with you and the client, it's also with the teams and everyone on the teams, as you said as well.
You don't get that overnight. And that's why I say that it's like, but the best part for me is whenever it was that I started to hit my stride in this business, or as I continue to, right, it's the folks that are presidents and general managers now, right, were people that were video coordinators or assistants or whatever now. And then they've grown up in the business. I've grown up in the business. And then through those presidents, you make contacts with the owners. And then, because they trust you enough to let you talk to the owner, right? And so Steve Ballmer comes down the hallway and says, what's up to me? It's because we've done deals and he's been in the room when we've done them. So the trust factor is there to know that we're all there for the same reason.
Yeah, and it's so important because sports is actually a small industry. And I mean, basketball definitely. And if you're gaining, like say, NBA, then most people know each other that you're there. So if you're doing not a good job, people will know about it. And on the flip side, if you're doing a good job and they know that they can trust you, that word will spread as well.
Yeah. or everyone, out there in negotiation, it's not always roses, right? I mean, I've had a lot of arguments with that are people that trust me. You notice I stopped short of saying that they're all your friends, right? Because you still have a job to do at the end of the day. And so do they. So if you can respect that about each other, then you can accomplish your goal, you know what I mean? Knowing that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. What are some misconceptions that you think that maybe fans have that people are outside of the looking in that about player contracts and the negotiations?
It's hard because I'm inside, right? So to know what people think outside, I think a lot of agents get a bad rap sometimes because you think that we're just there to grab money or to only think about that aspect of it. And no one sees, unless you're in it, right? The hard work, coordinating training, guys, helping them stay on track, helping them make the right choices in life as well. And all the things that go into trying to help them achieve that level of greatness, which ultimately equals wins for the team. So, you have a guy that you have to find the right situation for him to play in, and you have to be able to work with folks. And people don't see that, right? Like, listen, we had a young guy, Trey Jones, who's on the Chicago Bulls right now. He was finding his way in life through different teams, and we were able to ultimately get to Chicago through a lot of work through the president of the team and, being able to be a part of it and doing a new contract for him this year. But he's in an environment where he can thrive, and he's ultimately going to help that team win. And that's what they feel as well. And that's why they wanted him. That's something for fans in general to know, that if a player has a good agent, he's probably there for a reason, and things are going to go the right way they have the team's interest as well.
Yeah. We mentioned like there are huge numbers. You mentioned $100 million deals and so forth. How do you come to that value? How do you know that a player is worth X dollars? There's so much data nowadays that you can pull from statistics from the play, and you have their social media, how their personal brand. But how do you come down to when you I want this number for a player? How do you get to that number?
That's a good question. Sometimes it's your gut, you feel, right? I mean, and not just on the number, you could do the comps, right? So we have the numbers, what's the highs, what's the low, what's your floor, what's your ceiling, all of the things that go into a negotiation as I prepare for the negotiation. But when you're in there, you also have to know what a player's value is to the team. Also what the marketplace is for him with or her with other teams, right? That's important to know too, because now with the new way the salary cap is going and with the aprons and everything, you really have to be wanted by your home team in order for you to have a marketplace away from your home team, because you have to be able to potentially re-sign. There's a lot of teams that are in the apron right now, right? And that's going to ease up and as people adjust to the cap, and then we'll get to another way of looking at it. But you have to be able to adapt in any environment and know, hey, this is what's going to happen and not going to happen. I've got some good cap guys that work with me that do a really good job. And then people on our team inside of the agency that are just basketball folks that we analyze that stuff at nauseum, because you have to really take a look at that. You don't want to make a mistake and have a guy turn down a number, right? And then not be able to get at least that number somewhere else if it's a better basketball situation, or a bigger number, that team would value him more. So I think you'll see sign and trades coming in, or guys signing and then getting traded, and teams try and retain the players that they have, and then using the chips that they have inside of that to trade for players they want, as opposed to just being able to go on free agency and drop one on a guy.
Yeah. And I mean, it must be also important if the player feels good, like maybe they have a partner that they bring along or a family, and you go to a new town and so forth. If they feel good, they play good, I guess, many times. So that social aspect of it is also important, I assume.
Here's the best part about this job. Every single player is, and I say this all the time, and my coworkers sometimes laugh at me, but every player is their own canvas, their own template, right? You have the way that you do things, but some players come with 4 people, right? Some people come with a mom and a dad and a sister or a brother, and some come just by themselves. So you have each one of these situations that over the years of seeing it, you can draw on the experience to be able to help them, right? In that environment, just the social aspect of it, the young kid in the city he's never lived in before, coming out of college where he was the man, and now he's toiling away in the NBA, trying to find his way. You have to be able to support him in the way that you do. At Lyft, we've got some amazing client service people that's what all of our job is, right? So when a guy's there, you read what it is that he has, and then help those folks help him. And then if he doesn't have those things, again, it's about us helping him to be able to make that adjustment. That's half the battle. Teams do a really good job nowadays as well, understanding that part of it. And so it's still a business for them, but they try to create environments for players to have more kind of team camaraderie, right? Where they're a common place where they're eating with full chefs now, so that they can have their breakfast and their lunch, at least 2 meals a day, where they're kind of eating when other guys are eating, and stuff like that. So, or when they're on the road doing different kind of get-togethers and things like that, just to kind of help guys make that adjustment, especially the young guys.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned also international players that you're dealing with those as well. So is there a big difference in speaking with international players versus American players or different leagues, stuff like that?
The time zones obviously make it a little bit tougher at times. So you connect with your guys as much as possible. I try to stay a little more regular, right, in the communication with them, whether it's once a week or whatever it is that you're doing it. So it's like they know you after a game or something, you can reach out to them. I go over there twice a year to go see them too. So I'll spend 4 or 5 days. I have a number of players playing in like Istanbul and Turkey in that area. And then, guys that are playing around that area. So you can make a trip and you can kind of map it out. And with our groups that work over there to be able to come in and hit guys. And then around the Final Four is a great time to go. I've been fortunate to have a guy win a EuroLeague championship and be the MVP, and Nigel Hayes. That's a great one to be able to come and watch all of the work and sweat and toil that he went through to get to the top of that mountain and then to see it come to a championship. So I think we're lucky, I should say, fortunate in basketball that you have another environment that has such high level of play that guys can go over and still make life money, right? Because at the end of the day, this is a business and my job is to fill their bank accounts so that one day when they're done playing, they can ask me to help them find a job because they want a job, not because they need one.
Yeah, I like that mindset. Are you looking a lot to recruit new players? Because, US alone is a big country, a lot of of course, 330 million, not all basketball players, but still a big country. And if you're adding, different continents to that as well, then that's a lot of basketball you need to watch.
Yeah, it is. You see the numbers on how many players in any given draft are foreign players. So if you look at it this way, 30% of the players are coming from Europe, right, that are in the draft, or 40% even in some years. What time are you wasting spending recruiting only 60% of the players, right? If you're out there recruiting and you're adding new players as a firm, you can't look at just the USA as your marketplace. You have to be global. That's super important.
Definitely. What countries are like European? I'm in Sweden, so in more know the Europe market a little bit better. Although I'm not too deep down in the basketball, but in my mind, like if you see like EuroLeague and stuff like that, some Greek teams. Greece, Serbia, Turkey are, I guess, some good nations. Are there anything else that you pay extra attention to?
I think you can't really close your mind to it, right? That's why we kind of have a wide net that we cast in Europe. But you're right. You hit it on the head with most of those. And most of the marketplaces that I have guys that go play is, I think I have a guy in Italy right now, but then I have several in Turkey. We have a couple in Greece, guys kind of spread around in that area there. France has really come a long way from a basketball perspective too, and they're putting some major talent into the NBA. So you have to look at that as well. So those markets around there are super important.
Yeah, definitely. We touched about it a little bit before, but like NIL branding, all of the personal branding that comes in, how much are you working with that with the players to try to boost their personal brands?
It's a ton of our business, right? From a work perspective to help these guys. Like right now, portal time's coming up and right now we're assessing situations internally, assessing situations for guys that might want to move, and then assessing situations for what would be the best fit for them. I think the great part about NIL that's been helpful in understanding the players making money, and again, I don't want to belittle the money factor, right, for these guys, but I look at it more like how great that you can have an agency help you sit down and look at the film and look at everything to analyze the basketball situation for you. If you're going to make a move, let's make a move where you can go somewhere and really help a team and thrive there, same as we would in the NBA. And then how great is that for the organization too, the university, when we bring them players and talk about how they can fit, and they know that they're getting advice from basketball people, they're talking about it. And then therefore it kind of does some of their work too, and they do their work, and then same type of deal. Like then you can put a value on a guy, right? And I think you're starting to see more where there's a value number so that we can start to have some comps on that. First few years of it were phenomenal because I didn't even talk to anyone for less than $1 million, right? You just say, how much? $1 million. You would just say the number and you just making up comps as you went along. But the schools didn't know either. So they're like, okay, $1 million. You know what I mean? Like, we'll do that. Now, you know what I mean? Like, what's a guy's value or the transfer? What year is he? What can he bring to the program? I had a conversation today where a team's got like a Robin that they signed, but they're looking for Batman, right? So do you have a Batman for me? And then what's the Batman's value? So we try to look at all of that where we're helping guys move to a good situation and then maximizing the amount of money they can make. Some of these guys, the other part, it opens your eyes a lot to is that players that maybe weren't going to be professional players, now you can help them. I love it. It's like their career is going to be college. So how do we help them? Can you imagine if you or I could have walked out of college with $10 million in our bank account and a degree? It's life-changing, right? You're going to have a great life. And so how do we take that very serious to a player that trusts us to be a part of their life to help them enhance their life, right? We'll represent a lot of players over my career, my coworkers' career, but these kids only get one chance. Your families only get one chance. And so for me, that you have to take every one of those very serious. Don't take on people you can't help.
Yeah, I like that. So it seems like with this, it has put more power to the athletes a little bit. I think it's more in one way. So has that created a different, or do you agree with that, first of all?
I think yes, because players now, hey, listen, being able to transfer, right? Put all the power back. I don't want to say that it put all the power into the players' hands, because what you did was you evened the playing field. Because think about it, when a coach signed you in the past, you had to sit out a year. How crazy of a rule is that you go somewhere and then the coach isn't liking you, and if you want to go somewhere else, you have to sit for a whole year just because it wasn't the right situation. Again, with nobody helping you try to figure out what's the best situation. And so you're a family that's coming in this for the first time and a coach that thinks you could be the right fit. But to him, they didn't have to pay you anything other than a scholarship. So there was no money on the line. There was nothing involved with it. So now you go to the school and the coach doesn't really have anything to lose because it's a scholarship. But if you want to leave and it's the bad situation, you can't go anywhere. Being able to transfer, everyone says it put the power in the player's hands. I think it evened the playing field. Coach still got to play you, still got to do all those same things that he had to do. If you're not getting those things, you should be allowed to leave. You should be allowed to go somewhere else. You should be allowed to, and now add the money factor into it, right? You should be able to be a top player and to be paid a top wage for it, right? I mean, anywhere else you would go. We used to use the analogy is think about it. If your son or daughter was amazing at building programming for computers and Microsoft called you and said, we don't want you to go to college, we want you to come straight to us, right? Or we want you to do 1 year of college because you're going to take these classes and then come to us, or you're going to come here and we're going to pay you this right now, right? You would be like, no brainer. But when you're talking about a kid going to college, you think that, oh, you should just take the scholarship, but you shouldn't be allowed to go to the NBA, or you shouldn't be allowed to transfer to another school, you shouldn't be allowed to do this, you just have to go there and take it. Like, that wasn't a very fair structure either. So I think the greed on the other side is what ended up the lawsuits and everything else that helped level the playing field. Guys like Darren Heitner and other lawyers that were out there that fought for the freedom of the players. And it turned out to be, like I said, I think it's more of a evening of the playing field for these guys to help them that way.
Yeah. No, that's a very interesting take. And Darren Heitner is a great previous guest on this show as well. So shout out to
was
him.
he? Okay.
Yeah, shout out to him.
He's done some good stuff. I mean, obviously, in helping enhance everything that all of us are getting to do now.
Yeah, definitely. My part 2 of that question, if you agree that there is more, you say it was a more level playing field, but my part 2 of that question was basically, I mean, now if there is more empowered athletes in a sense, and there are different agencies, is it a bigger fight, for you to get a player, or do you see a bigger competition? So like, why should player X sign with you with the Lyft Sports Management and not with X Sports Management?
I think the one great part about us at Lyft, and obviously I can't give you all my trade secrets, right? But we, listen, we're a powerful mid-sized agency. And I think that what I find in that and what I like about it is that I've had opportunities to go work at the big firms, but I think that you can get lost in the shuffle. And I'm not hating on them. I'm just saying this is my opinion, right? You get lost in the shuffle, or you can get lost in the shuffle if you're not one of their top couple of players. With us, like, every player is super important. And so, as I was just telling you, there's kids that sign with us that are going to only play in college, right? And we have the structure to be able to support them all the way through, right? They're not just lost in the shuffle. They're not just a number to us, right? They're a player that's going to, bring something to the table every single day for us to be able to be focused on them. And so if you end up being an NBA player, another reason it makes us different, because there's a lot of firms out there that just do NIL, right? We're also a full service agency. So if you have pro aspirations, whether it be overseas or the NBA, it's a natural to bring you right, from wherever it is you're in college, and then take you to the next level and be able to give you great advice and to help you understand what your opportunities are.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned that you're a more senior agent now, and there are younger ones as well. But I'm curious to the field per se. So I know that you have an NBPA at the certified agent. That's how it's called.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
So,
make us get certified. So does FIFA on the European side too.
and that was 2005, right? So 21 years ago. So,
Yeah.
if someone listening to this and they are like, okay, Kevin sounds awesome. It sounds like a great occupation. I want to be a basketball agent. How does one get by to become one?
In order to stay certified, right, you have to be able to sign a player. That's a big thing. I would tell people looking for advice is don't be afraid to do all the work when you're that young trying it, right? Like if you play, great, right? But go work for a team if you can, do an internship, go intern at an agency, ask the shadow, right? Like study the collective bargaining agreement, study, you know what I mean? What comps are, see where your fit is. Right? I didn't know I was going to be an agent when I was starting to work in the business, right? But I evolved into it. So don't be afraid to do other things to get you to where you want to be. I think what I see sometimes is you get a law degree or you get a degree in sports management, and then you just call and say, yeah, I want to be an agent. I want a job. And it's like, well, you want us to invest in you, but what are we investing in? I think I was fortunate when I was young and, my mother was the one that installed the work ethic in me, right? But I had a lot of internships before I even came to the point where I was doing what I was doing. And then when I was doing that, I was doing other things along with what I was doing, which ultimately led me to be an agent, right? My knowledge of how to make different situations right helped me a lot when I made the transition to being an agent. I was kind of recruited a little bit to be an agent only because I had the ability to sign players, right? There was a trust factor that I was fortunate that people could see the realness in me and wanted to do business with. My first client was one where his mother told me that she's like, you're destined for bigger things and we want you to be a part of it with us. So putting yourself in those situations is what helps it. So don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and do the work. Go out there and find those internships and do those things and do that research. Make yourself stand out from everybody else. That's really the important part to it, right?
Yeah, I love that. And so to be a certified, it's a test. It's some you need to pass, or how does that
Yeah,
work?
now it's a written test. It's interesting because I just heard this year's test, you had to fly to New York and be in a room, and it was literally done with pencil. So you had to take the test, and then Kirk Berger over at the MBPA, he graded them all. I think I heard a stat that only about 30% of the people passed it this year. It might have been 30 or 35%. Don't quote me on the actual stat I heard, but the test is hard. It's open book, but it's still, CBA is that big, you know what I mean? So like you can't open book, you don't have enough time to scroll through it. So there's classes that are offered through the MBPA that you can go to take, and study guides and study classes and things like that. So it's an important class for you to come in knowing the rules, right? But you have to also have some of the other things I was talking about, because you can pay the money and pass the test. But if you don't sign a player within 3 years in the NBA, you have to retake the test. So you lose your certification.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like the recruiting side, the working side, the other stuff, that's super important as well.
Hmm. So the certificate is only for the NBA, or how does that work? Like, can it
Yes.
be
Yeah.
okay? So you can be an agent for lower divisions without a certification.
Yeah. And so that hasn't, the NCAA has put some stipulations on. They want everyone to be certified. Like if you're testing the draft and you want to go back to school, there's things that you have to do through the NCAA. But a lot of this stuff nowadays on the lower level is just a conversation, right? So having the coaches respect you enough to be able to want to have that conversation with you is something that's there. But there's also, I've seen a lot of groups that have just started it up and signing guys and moving them around and getting it done. So if you're good at it and you're hustling, that's a great way to help guys make money, to make connections in the business. And then also ultimately, some of those guys go pro. That's how you're going to get your pros, right? You have to be able to recruit. You have no players, you have no job.
Exactly. And as mentioned, you have done this now for 2 decades, and I guess there are younger agents on your team. So are you acting a little bit as a mentor to them, trying to help them out
Yeah.
in their career?
As much as anybody wants to be mentored, I try to do that. I feel like when I came into the business, it was more cutthroat a little bit, if you will. It's still cutthroat of a business. It was a sink or swim type thing for me. And that's not a knock on the people that I worked with. I think it was just that everybody was trying to survive, right? So I try to do a little bit more where don't make the same mistakes I did, and it can help you be more successful or to be successful, whatever that's going to be determined by your work ethic. But there are a lot of things I learned early in the business that if I had those 2 or 3 years back, maybe what more I could have accomplished.
No, for sure. But they need to have the drive as well, obviously. But I mean, as you mentioned, a few pothole, like pitfalls, what do you call them? Maybe they can avoid those at least.
Yeah, yeah, no. Some of those types of things are definitely right. Like just by having conversation and being able to talk through it, you can help a guy understand like how does this work? How does free agency work? How does some of these things work? How do I chase a player? How do I get this? How do I sign? It just like there's a lot of I spent a lot of time on the road early in my career camping on stuff that didn't happen, and you can kind of read those situations a little bit better now. You don't want to waste anybody's time, or you don't want to waste your time. So just being able to read the situations and understand that stuff, I think I can help. And I do help all of our young folks at Lyft to be able to accomplish that.
That's great to hear. So let's backtrack your career a little bit. We have mentioned now 2 decades, but how did you get into the sports industry? Was it something you studied, and how has your career trajectory been?
I was working at a PR and marketing agency. I was like working on consumers products. And then somebody said, someone want to go to this USTA event? It was a tennis event. I had grown up around sports. I had lived my life around sports and all of the things that I loved about it. And so I said, yes, I'll go, and went and hit it off with the person who was like the director at the time of the USTA. And they had a football player there for some reason who was doing like an appearance. And I hit it off with him and then ended up doing some brand building for him. And then through the agency, and then was working on the USTA stuff. And then we added motorsports. And at the time we had the McDonald's All-American game. So I worked on that game. And so I was doing a lot of different things inside of it. And then one day I met Jerry Rice, ended up doing some brand building for him. And then we did some stuff through McDonald's for Sammy Sosa. And it was like all of a sudden we had a sports practice at the agency I was at. Then put into a role where I was running the day-to-day on it. And we had a lot of people working inside of the group. And then as I started to do more brand building, that's when through the McDonald's game, I was meeting at the time, I had no idea I was going to be an agent. I mean, it's a crazy story how it all came to be, but I worked on a bunch of players. The National Player of the Year was always my responsibility. And then that's when, as I came to the point where one of the players' parents said, there's so much more for you in this thing, I started doing a little bit more business management and then doing marketing and brand management for just NBA guys. And one day, a couple of the players I represented, then the agent came to town and said, you need to come over and be an agent. Here's the reasons why. And I think that you'd be amazing at it. And I went home and thought things through and ended up deciding that, it seemed like a great path for me. And then I figured I would try it. I was young enough to go for it. And I never looked back. The only regret I have is that I didn't do it sooner, because I found a real passion for the day to day. And I also found the ability to help people, right? To be really to have, I'll look back when I'm done and look at all the accomplishments I had, all the players that I helped, all the families that I helped, and I'll be able to really feel a sense of accomplishment from that, right? As opposed to just other things that weren't fulfilling me back then. And I got that instant fulfillment from that. And 2 decades later, I still feel that every day.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, to have that drive as you have, obviously, still after 2 decades, it just shows that you're in the right place.
Yeah, I wish everybody gets to wake up every day and love what they do, because that's the best way to go through life.
Yeah. Is there any legacy that you hope to leave behind the day when you decide to throw in the towel?
I haven't really thought about like legacy of throwing in the towel, I should say. I was still getting after it in the business, but I think some of the legacy type things that you think about is the things that I just mentioned, right? How many people that you've helped? I have retired guys now, right? And we're helping them, right? We're helping them do different stuff. We've got a great group at Lyft, a great group of people that are doing a lot of stuff for retired players like Joakim Noah and some other ones. And they do a great job of trying to help guys, put them in situations that they can be successful, and doing different kind of podcasts or videos or all those types of stuff. So it's one of those things that when you look back when it's done, especially now that I'm at Lyft and I feel like what we're building there is something super special, that's going to be something that's going to be around for a long time. You know what I mean? And it will be around after I'm done, and probably after some of the other guys that are there now are done, right? We'll be able to say that we were a part of that. And they had started a couple years before I got there. But, when I came in, I think I'll be able to look back and feel like I was a part of something special.
That's great. We have kind of hit this already, but any advice for young people who wants to get into the sports industry?
Find first that it's your passion. Don't just do it because you think that it's something you want to do, right? Everyone wants to be a sports agent, but do you really know what it means to be a sports agent? And I hope by doing this with you, I can shed a little bit of light on it. But It's a grind. It's a hard job. There's a lot of stuff you do. You don't just do contracts and then get to sign with players and hang out. You're going to do all that type of stuff. That's not the job, right? And people that come in with thinking that is the job are the ones that don't make it, right? And it doesn't last. So I've seen a lot of agents come and go over the years because they weren't willing to do the work. We used to call it when I was younger, it's like, are you willing to carry the bags for anybody, right? Are you willing to do that type of work? And you might be one day in the room and do $100 million contract because you had done so much great work and all the things that you have your passion for, and you fought and you dug and and I think everything came out great. And then the next day you got to help a guy who's moving, you know what I mean? Or whatever it is that they need. And you go right back into it, and you can't think about what the job is. You just have to know that you got to do the job every day.
Yeah.
If you're interested in being an agent, think those things through first, right? Are you willing to commit that type of life to be a part of the life? And if you are, then go do an internship, go do some other things. If you're that young in the business, right? Like go do those things to make sure you want it. Don't just take a class at school and think you want to do it. I started in college and I thought I was going to be an accountant my freshman year, right? And that summer I went and did an internship at an accounting firm. And no offense to accountants, because I've got a great one and I work with many great ones. I wasn't going to be a great one, right? Sitting at a desk all day long was not for Kevin Bradbury. I learned quickly that that wasn't what I was supposed to do. And then continued to move along in my life till I found my calling. So make sure that you're trying those things out to make sure it's something you want to do, because it sounds great on paper, but it's a lot of work and a lot of commitment, and you give up a lot to achieve success.
Love it. And what you said there with the internship, that I feel like sometimes young people are like, but what if I spend a couple of months here and then I don't like it? Like, yeah, then you know. Then you don't have to take a job. Like, it's valuable still. Either you know that you like it or that you don't like it. So you have learned something either way.
It's crazy that, you can go through it and not have experienced it and then say, this is what I want to do with my life. And I get it. You know what I mean? I was young too. You know what I mean? A lot of times I did the internships out of, oh, I'm going to work in this and maybe it'll give me a leg up to get a job, really is what I thought of it. But like even the accounting thing, I thought, oh, it's a great place. It was in the town I was growing up in or whatever. And I came home and I'm like, I had a couple of older friends that were already working there. And I thought, yeah, this is the path. And then I was there like a week and I was like, wait a minute. We just sit here and do this all day? Yeah, it's not for me. Right. But then I did other internships in all different types of areas as I moved along, and you know what I mean? To see if I wanted to do things, and had to find the things that motivated me on a daily basis. Because if you're not motivated, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
You just toil through it. Or in our case, even the bad part is being an agent, you can't just get a job as an agent and not have a passion for it and then just think you're just going to survive for 20 years. You're not. You'll be out. You won't sign players. You won't get it. You know what I mean? You have to produce. It's like a sales job, right? You have to produce in order to stay relevant.
Definitely. So looking ahead, then 2 decades, do you have any other like goals, other like specific maybe goals or things you want to achieve, or is it keep on doing great work as you're doing?
Yeah, I think the work that we're doing at Lyft is going to be monumental in helping reshape the environment for agencies out there. I really do. I think that powerfulness of, a mid-sized agency, we just added football. So it was one of those things too. So we have a football division now, which is like, now we can do multiple sports. And as we add other pieces that we think are important for us to be able to help service our clients even better, that's stuff that for me, like literally wakes me up every day, being excited about it. And so for us to do that, and then obviously I've got a nice list of clients that I still need to do everything they need done. And I need done. And then I also have some young guys that are coming up that are going to be needing the same thing. So I think being able to maximize the experience that I have in this business, and helping people achieve other goals is something that you can keep doing that for, I don't know how long.
No, for sure. And I mean, us that we work in sport, like working with something that we also love, it's a blessing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. The great part is I've gotten myself to the point where I can do a pretty good job if you need me to do your contract. So I think that as long as I keep my brain sharp, I'll always be relevant in that regard.
Sounds good.
There's always going to be contracts to be done.
For sure. I like to end on a networking question. So who from your network do you think would be a good guest on this show?
A good guest on our show. Well, we have obviously Mike Miller, who played in the league, right? And he's an agent now, and he's one of the few former players that's been able to make the transition and really do a great job of being an agent. He really does care. We also have Donnie McGrath, who played overseas, and he's our CEO, and he's been kind of the mastermind behind putting all of this together. So like adding football, bringing me on. I recruited Donnie when he was in college, right? And then Donnie came back and found me And so like, it's one of those things where like he's building an agency. It's interesting to listen when he's talking about stuff. That's a couple of people I think that could really provide some good insight for young folks trying to figure it out.
Definitely. Two great guests. And what a full circle moment there that you recruited him and then he recruited you back.
Oh, best part of the story is I helped Mike Miller with his website when he was playing in the league. Like I was doing a marketing thing. It was like through some of his friends. So I helped Mike with his website and I recruited Donnie. And I used to see Donnie overseas all the time because I would go. And so it was one of those things where like, it's this good that when I joined Lyft, his dad called me, right? And he's like, finally, you and Donnie are together, right? So I love his dad. I mean, it was one of those things where like, we knew each other through all those years. So it was a pretty iconic moment for us.
For sure. And it just proves again, like the power of networking and keeping in touch with your people that you get along during the way and keeping that relationship alive.
Yeah. You know what the best part is? You said networking and it reminded me of something is just remember every person that you meet is a contact. You don't have to try and wow them or do something with it. It's like, just do the right thing. As long as you keep doing the right thing, right? Those people are always going to remember you in a positive light. And eventually all of that builds up to the point where you might be in my position. You might be where you're calling someone and they remember that call, that video coordinator when he tried to call me for something that I answered, right? When I was working on something or anything like that. There is no reason not to just do the right thing every day. And if you do that, right, your network will grow. And then there'll come a point where your network's so big, you don't even realize how big it is.
Yeah, for sure. Kevin, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time.
I appreciate you. No, this has been really fun.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on your podcast app so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com, connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow the podcast on Instagram, X, and Facebook @SportsM Podcast.